Hi folks, my name is Uli Staiger. I am a photographer and CGI artist from Berlin, Germany. And thanks to Maxon, I can be presenting here a little bit of my work, a few of my images, and would like to explain to you how I use photography, how I use Maxon's Cinema 4D, and how I use Photoshop in a combination to get my images and my image style. But before I talk too much, we maybe jump just into the first images so you get an idea what I do and where I come from. When I started with photography, there was just photography. That was the end of the 80s, and of course we were working not digitally because there was no digital photography. There was no Photoshop we could use, so everything was done by hand, done by lighting, done by very cool cameras and very big props we built in the studio. Like this one here, but okay, this is already from the digital area, but the wave that's built from more than 3,000 corks. This is something, well, we did by hand. We did this manually. As you can imagine, it's a lot of work, but it's nothing that you cannot do because you just have to build it. Then you set a nice light on it, and the rest is just photography and a little bit of Photoshop to set in the new sky and the bulb and the bottle of the foreground. But this is something you can do with photography and Photoshop. Let's go a little further and look at this image. It's not even too old. Also for this image, you don't need any 3D work. It's not necessary. You can photograph the water, you can photograph the sky, the plane, and of course the ferry. The only 3D man is the shooter, the guy in the foreground. That's a guy I put in 3D, in Cinema 4D. But in general, these images are done just with Photoshop. The light, of course, is painted. We don't need any 3D work, any 3D software for it. At one point, about 15 years ago, I came to the point where I realized, oh wow, that's not that easy. I have to bring in a rocket engine in my image, and I don't know where I can photograph it. Of course, I found a lot of rocket engines in the internet. I saw that it's not too hard to construct something like that, but I needed a 3D software, so I choose Maxon Cinema 4D. Why? Because it's for me still the easiest to learn 3D professional software in the world, and I just started playing with it. I started building little things, little props. I started building little models, and pretty soon it wasn't too hard anymore to build these scooters. About, I don't know, a few days I worked with it and I started building these scooters, put in a very shiny material and combined it with the photographed guys. I photographed them in the studio, and the rest is photographed outside my studio, not far from my studio here in Berlin. So when I did this, I knew that the possibilities I have with Cinema 4D, they are so huge. I have to continue with that. And I continued, built more complicated models, more models that needed a little bit more of skills. I learned more Cinema 4D, and after a short period of time, I was able to build this submarine and put it into also photographed environment. Just like images like this, you see more or less Cinema 4D. In this image, I built the whole scene in Cinema 4D, just the girl I photographed. It's the same here. That's a picture of myself because I couldn't use any model for that, but that's another story. And I think everybody can see that if you want to build a slide like that, if you want to show a slide like that, built in a seascape, then you have to use 3D software because you just can't photograph it anywhere. It's just not possible. So just like this Eiffel Tower and the drone, I put all this together in Cinema 4D. Just the guy you see here, the pilot is the pilot that is conducting the drone. That's a photograph. Building that guy or building this scene in Cinema 4D with all the mountains, all the meadows, all the skies on and all that is for me a lot easier in Photoshop than to do it in Cinema 4D. But to build the generator or to photograph the generator from very close is almost impossible. Of course, you could try that with a drone, but it's very hard to do in the right lighting with the right perspective. So this is perfect to build in Cinema 4D. You see a few more examples also here. The loop is built in Cinema 4D, the rest is a photograph. You see the airship, of course, is built in Cinema 4D, but the captain is a photograph again. Also the clouds and the landscape. Again, this is easy to build, or it's possible to build in Cinema 4D, but in my opinion, it's a lot quicker and nicer to take your camera and just photograph it and combine the things you can photograph with the things that are not easy or not possible to photograph. Just like here, or in this image where we can see also the sugar. Again, that sugar idea, but in this case, the sugar is not photographed. The sugar, of course, because it's flying around, is done in Cinema 4D. Just the girl, the ballerina, is photographed in my studio. Okay. From time to time, I do full CGI productions like this. Nothing is photographed anymore. It's just the lighting that reminds on photography. I like it when it looks pretty photorealistic, just like this one here. So I learned a lot from photography. I learned a lot from photography and bring that into my experience in Cinema 4D when it comes to lighting. Now, how does that work in general? Maybe we take just a look at a little image. You just saw it before with a submarine. And this image started out with this image. You can see that there is a lot of retouching that I had to do on the left side, which is not too hard to do. Just put it in and it looked a lot better. Then of course I wanted no background but houses. When I need a submarine, I also need a piece of water. So we just exchanged the background, put in a nice fluffy sky and a beautiful piece of North Sea. No, it's the East. No, it's the North Sea. It's not the Baltic Sea. It's the North Sea, I think. I don't remember. Okay. So all this is done in Photoshop. If you want to do something like this in Cinema 4D, it takes a while. It takes really a while to do it in Photoshop. It takes you maybe half a day if you have the images already. There was just one problem. If you look at the lines of the buildings, then you see that the horizon, when you just take the lines of the right side of the building, you see that the lines go underneath the horizon. So there's something wrong with that picture. It was quickly done in Photoshop. It was nicely done in Photoshop, but still the perspective is a little bit crooked. So what do you do? Usually when you do something like that, you could not use the image anymore because it's just not a perspective that would work. So what I did, I decided to just use or just build a huge scene in the foreground. I just take this submarine smashing through the harbor, and when you see that and put it together perspectively correct with the image in the background, nobody will look at the lines anymore. Nobody will realize that the lines that you see on the right side of the building follow not the horizon but go underneath it. So this is something I think that works pretty well. Of course, we need more details. Photography has a lot of details. Usually when you build something in Cinema 4D, there are not that many details. You have to put them in. You have to put them in by materials, by shaders, or by more stuff you model. In this case, there was more that was missing. It was not only the details, it was also the captain. So I asked my friend Daniel, hey Daniel, because he is a real captain. He's a pilot, but you don't see that if you don't know the uniforms too well. If he could play the catastrophe for me, and he said, no problem, I can do that. So this is what he did. Pretty good, I think. And this is the image we took. I photographed it using green screen, and so the masking was done in 2 minutes, and with a few more details, a few flying stones, and a look on the image, I think it works pretty well. Another example is this image of Spider-Man. Of course, you don't see Spider-Man here yet, but you see that this is New York City, or you might see it. If you've been there, you see Macy's, you see something, some landmarks that are typical for New York City. So I don't remember if I took this picture from the Empire State Building or from the Rockefeller Center. Both images you are accessible, so you can go there, you can mount them then on them and can take photographs. And now just imagine you want to build this in Cinema 4D. Of course, it's possible. Of course, you can do that. But with all these details, all these cars you can see, all these even people, it's pretty far away from the ground, but you can still see people. You can see all these machines and details on the roofs, and just imagine you want to do this with a 3D software. Of course it's possible, but it takes you, I don't know, it would take me probably half a year to to do this. So this is also one reason I use photography for stuff like this. And even if you do not go to New York City, you can buy images like this on stock platforms, no problem. Okay, let's see what I did. Cinema 4D gave me this piece of a house. This is also done in a few minutes. Maybe you remember the church that was blown up in the air just a few minutes ago. That's the wall of the church. I used it as the wall of a skyscraper in Manhattan. It works for that pretty well, I think. The mirror in the windows is just a mirror of the image you see on the left side. It's not really realistic, but it's realistic enough so nobody sees that it's fake. Yes. Of course, we need to bring this house in the same perspective as the New York City image in the background. Background is the right word, so we just go to a background object and just pick the material that shows that photograph and put it on the background. So this is the way it looks. And now we have basically two ways of bringing the same perspective to the house as we have in the background photograph. So the first thing, which is only theoretical, a good idea is you first of all grab a new camera, then you go to tags, tracker tags, and find right here the camera calibrator, which is basically a very, very cool instrument, but it needs definitely some measurements. So if I just want to add a grid or add a line, you see already that I have to know known length from here to this point, or from this point to that point, or from this to that, because I can put this here and put this here, and it looks pretty cool, and it is already almost a perfect grid, but I don't know how far is it from here to here. So this is not the way I work when I usually have a background photograph just like here. So what I do is, first of all, I try to find out what is the focal length of the background photograph. And in this case, I did it myself. In this case, it's 24 millimeters. So of course, I go to the camera, switch it on, and change the focal length from 36 to 24. This makes it look even worse, but it's not that hard thing to repair this. The second thing is we have to match, of course, the focal length. The second thing is the horizon, which is the vanishing line. Let's call it that. The vanishing point from here to here makes a vanishing line, which is exactly the same as the horizon. So I try to match this as good as possible, more or less just like that. Then, of course, we are pretty far away from our house, so I just move it a little bit more into our image, go closer, as close as I think is good, just like that. And now I take care that I'm first of all close enough. This is what I want. Second, I want to make sure that these lines, the vertical lines, match. And if you look at this, they don't really match perfectly. So there's a, well, if you watch this here, you see a little angle. If you watch this, it looks okay, so but not really. So there's also still a little angle. So what you can do is see if this horizon is really straight, and in this case it's not, right? It's not really straight. So I just click on the camera, go to the coordinates, hold down the Alt key to slowly change the bank right here, and now I think this looks a lot better. It's just 0.2 degrees, so it's not very much, but if we render that, then we should have the impression at least that the perspective is pretty close, and I would say yes, it's not a problem anymore, it looks good. So to to tell you again, to put it again down on 2 sentences, it's a very cool tool to work with the camera calibration tag, but if you don't have the measurements, it doesn't help you very much. The second thing is just match the horizon, try to match the camera angle. Of course, you have to match the focal length, and then it's just a question of time until you have the right perspective. That's one of my pictures from 2020, so it's one of the really new pictures. You see the cerveza bottles in the foreground. You might know that usually there is no cerveza, there is something else on the bottles. And it was the moment when I realized that Corona would be something that really hit me in a way that's completely unexpected. So this is basically the idea behind this image, and I just took this fin and let it smash through the table, and yeah, most of this what you see here is very simple modeling. So a table which is not more than a square, yeah, just a very simple form, just like the cupboards in the background you see, or the pots that are standing right next to the windows. All this is very, very simple to model. So it's nothing you have to study. It's something you can just do. Using the materials, of course, you can use your own materials. Of course, you can use shaders you buy or shaders you find inside Cinema 3D that are there already. Don't forget there's about, I think, 10 gigabyte of materials that comes with Cinema 3D. So also this is not too hard to do. But I do not want to show you only how I did this technically, but also how I started off with this image, because I think this is maybe something you can learn also a lot. So that's my first test I did. The guy sitting on the table, we have windows on one side and the shark fin just coming to the guy sitting there. Dum, 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 dum. Yeah, you can imagine, okay? So this is what the idea was. Then I tried it from the different direction because I thought it would be nice to see the face of the guy when when the fin comes directly to him. And I also imagine, of course, fin. That's from a shark living in the water. We need some waves, because the waves are normal. If you see a fin going through the water, then we have to have waves. Then on the other hand, I thought, well, yeah, we have waves, but we don't need them on a table on a wooden table. So, but to go back again, what I definitely wanted to do is the Tischtuch, the cover that covers the table. And this is something I would like to show you in Cinema 3D how that works. So let's go to Cinema 3D. Yes. So here we go to Cinema 3D, and we are in Cinema 3D, and I would like to show you how this works, because it's not too hard to do, but still, yeah, it's better if you take a look and you know how it works. So what we do is the following. I just grab a plane, and usually when you have a table, you have something like 90 by, I don't know, 135 centimeters, something like that. I go in the display to the lines display and go a little bit further, a little bit closer. So this is it. Then when I imagine that it hangs down towards the floor right here, I add 40 centimeters on each side. So it's 130 by 175. It looks like this. And the segments could be a little bit nicer, so I take 30 by 40. Don't take too much, because if you take too much, it's hard for your computer or for your GPU to do what it's supposed to do. Okay, this is what we take for the coverage of the table. So the next thing is the table itself. That's the table. I said before, usually it's a 90 by 135. We just make it 1 centimeter, just like this. And because I would like to show it in a way, something like this, right? Something like that. That's our perspective. I would like to use a table that is a lot longer, because we don't see the table basically. So we do a very long table, 400 centimeters, and bring it back to about this position. Then we just lower it down a bit, just like this, and you can see that our plane is just about 3, 4, 5 centimeters above the table. So I call this table. Next thing is going to be the fin. Of course, the fin also has to be built. So we just copy paste the table, call it fin, and change the fins like that, and just bring it up a little bit. It's way too long, but it shouldn't be like this. It should something like this, because we need a lot of mass, as you are going to see later. So, okay. Then we set it down. You don't have to do this exactly. Something like this. Just set it a few centimeters above the table. Should do it already. Next thing is, fin looks not like that. I bring it a little bit, make it a little bit thinner, and take this edge and just bring it back a little bit, just like this. Whoop. Okay, so it looks a little bit more like a shark fin. All right, so this is what I want to do. So that's basically all. That's basically it. And with this, just three little things, you can build this Tischtuch, this coverage on the table. So, okay, let's try this. Let's just do this. We need the plane, of course, needs to have in the simulation text a soft body. The table itself is also in the simulation text just a collider body tag, and the fin gets in the same group. You find here the rigid body, and the rigid body tag has the opportunity, gives you the opportunity that you can bring in your custom initial velocity. Just put it on, and since it goes towards minus z, you go to here to, I don't know, 265. Just take anything, because if it's not working, it's not working, and if it's working, then it's fine. So you can always change this, but just take something, minus 200, minus 300, and we just look what happens. Yeah, well, okay. Maybe not that good. Okay, go back. We go to minus 500, something like minus 500. Try again. Woo, a lot better. Okay, so that's basically it. Let's see how it looks. Okay, maybe we go back and use a little bit more velocity, something like this. Okay, and I want to also show you two things you can always work with. If you go to the plane and go to the dynamic body tag, you find here right on the soft body Reiter here on soft body, you find this, hold on, it's the structural. Okay, the structure you can put on something like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if you do it again, it changes everything. Even more you can change this if you take the flexion down from 50 also to a very, very rough, very, very low number, 6, 5, 2, 3, something like this. And if we do that again, then you can see, okay, it looks different what it does here, right? Usually you can do it like this, but sometimes I think it's a little bit too fast. So if you want to see this in a not that fast way, you just go to Edit, go to Project Settings, and inside the Project Settings, at the, where is it, Dynamics, yes, you can change the time scale from 100% to, let's say, 10%, something like that, okay? And so if we do this again, and maybe we take for the plane right away an SDS to make it look, make it look nicer. Ooh, now inside, okay, make it look nicer and smoother. Then this is what you can see. Wow, yes. And of course you can stop it when you want, when you think that looks good. Then you just stop it. When you think not enough velocity, go back to the fin. the rigid body tag, go back to dynamics and increase the speed to something you like better. Try again and you see what happens. Also the shape is completely different now. Exactly, this is the way I want it. I look at it and yes, this is something we could use. If you would like to have it a little bit more, well, just different from what you see, you can always use the sculpting part of Cinema 4D. You just have to change that. You have to subdivide it, and then you can use all these little parts here and use that, all these tools to change your folding. But in general, I think this is something that works pretty well, and there's not very much more to do than just that. Maybe we let it go a little bit further, because here, right here, that doesn't look too good. All right. Okay, and yeah, I guess this is it. Okay, so I like it that way. Of course, the fin is going to be replaced later. You don't need it anymore. The fin looks now like that, and of course you put in the fin you would like to put in, so they should look more dangerous, more wet, and more used, of course. But the cloth itself, the cloth can just look the way it does. Now, maybe let's take a quick look to the Voronoi object, because the Voronoi object is responsible for the breaking of the table. Of course, we want to break the table, because otherwise it would not work. The whole idea would not work. So I just go to the table right here, and the table has to be childed to a, where is it? MoGraph here, Voronoi fracture object. So I just take the table, put it in here, and we have to do a few changes before we can start our animation. First thing is that I don't like the way it breaks. So that's just too big, doesn't look very nice. So I go directly to the Voronoi fracture object, go to the sources, I click on the sources, and then you can see that you can change the amount right here. And if you change that, you see, of course, if you have very many little shatter pieces, then this will take a long time for rendering, or for just for the animation itself. So maybe we just start with 250, something like that. And the second thing is, you can of course change the way where you want these fractures. So we can just do this, that we put them a little bit closer to the field where we need all the little pieces, make it narrower, something like that. And also in Z direction, I do that and concentrate the little pieces on exactly that part that I need. I go back in X direction a little bit, so right here it can shatter very nice. Of course, I don't like these pieces that look very regular, so I just add another source, and just adding the source changes already the way everything looks. So of course here also you can just change the pieces until it looks a little bit more natural. Okay, so this is something I like, and I think we can let it go. The table doesn't need this tag anymore, but the Voronoi fracture object needs a simulation tag. Where is it? Simulation tags right here. Needs a rigid body tag. So, okay, let's see if that works, and we just start right now. And you see, oh wow, yes, of course it works. The only thing we do not like is that everything goes down here towards the Y direction minus Y direction, so we don't want it this way. It works in general, and maybe this could be okay, but I don't like the fact that everything goes down here. So what we do is we go back to edit, to the project settings. In the dynamics, you remember in general we had the time scale on 10% already, so this is not 100%, it's just a 10%, so it's a very cool time lapse. And also the gravity you take down from 1000 to 0, and if you do that, then you see that the table stays on exactly where it's supposed to stay. Of course it moves a little bit, but this is only because of the dynamics of the fin that just breaks everything. So okay, go back to 0. It would be nice if we could just go through here just like that, go forward and back, but this is not working until you bake everything. So go to the cache, go to bake, and the simulation is going to be baked within a few seconds. And if you do that, then you can just easily scrub through and go forward, go back, and just put it exactly where you want it, so it looks pretty natural. When you're done with that, of course, you click on the fracture object, go to object. You probably don't want to have the color fragment, so just take off this little hook, and now you can even put some materials on it. So if you did that, then I think you can do a pretty cool simulation. Of course, you have to work a little bit with the fracture object. Go to the sources again, change the point amounts, change it for the other point generator as well. Just play around, and after a few moments, a few rounds of playing, you certainly will find a very good and cool way of shatter the table. So I changed the lighting, I changed the details, and I realized that there were not enough details. Of course not, because it's supposed to be a kitchen. So I modeled all this, modeled the cloth, modeled the chairs, the window. But still we had the problem there's a guy sitting, and the guy is one of these very simple figures. No, that very simple figure from Cinema 4D. It's classic, and you can use it. You can change its position easily, very quick, without knowing anything about Cinema 4D. Not very much, at least. And it's always a welcome figure to use in a prop, or to use when you are still trying. Of course, we needed to replace this by photography. I would have liked to do it with a model, but Corona said no models in the studio, and all my models said no, I don't want to come. I understand this, of course. I didn't force anybody, so it had to be myself again. So I took myself as the model and photographed myself. I set the lighting so it could be the lighting of what we saw before. It could be the lighting of my kitchen. Photographed myself, and photoshopped me inside my image, and this is what happened. All right. Another image I would like to show you. It says emotional lighting. Well, yeah, in a way. I built this thing. It's not a scooter this time. It's called Monopod. It's not my name, or I didn't call it Monopod. It's, again, I've mentioned him before. It's Doug Chung who did this design. Doug Chung is a very famous American concept artist, and he can draw something like that. I can not believe how anybody can just draw it. I can understand how you model this in Cinema 4D, maybe in another program, but I could never paint or draw this. So I asked him again, can I use your design? And he said, yes, go ahead, just do what you want to do and show me what you did. So I built this thing, and again you see the pilot sitting on top of it. Of course, we need not only this very nice orange shiny thing. I would like to have it a lot better, a lot nicer. It would look a lot nicer when we have a worn, used look, something like this. This is something I like a lot better, and you can do this, of course, by using body paint or by using any other program. But you always need UV edit to edit the UVs. Of course, that's the name of the program, to be able to paint directly on this thing, directly on the object. But there's another way of producing these edges. To produce that, you just go to Cinema 4D, or I go to Cinema 4D, and I would like to show this to you. Of course, I don't use this. We close that. I do it with a simple square, now with a cube, and we go here to No, 10. 10 should be enough. Right, again I go to the guru shading with lines. We give it a little fillet, something like this, maybe like that, a little bit bigger. Okay, that should do it. All right, so just to show how this works. So the first thing we have to do when the cube is done, we have to convert it because we want to paint on the cube, right? So you can't do this with a parametric object. You need a polygon object. Next thing we need a material. I take a very, very simple material, something like that. I don't know. Okay, and just put it on the cube. The next material, because we need 2 of them, is supposed to be, well, a little bit different, because I would like to make it look worn. So I take the same and just change the color to keep it easy, just like that. Okay, and put it also on the cube, and this is the material I have to work with. How do we do that? Well, easy. We first of all click on the cube, go to tags and go to other tags, because in other tags you find the vertex color tag. A very, very nice thing, because you just click on it, change the paint mode from vertex color to vertex color alpha, okay. And now the whole thing is white, and you see already, you have a brush, you can start painting. Wow, wonderful, you start painting, wow, and nothing happens. Why not? Because the alpha is here set on 100%. Just set it on, I don't know, 50%, 25%, something like that. Start painting again, and you see, it's working. You can change the radius, it's a little bit too much maybe, so, and you start just painting at it on the edges. Usually the edges are more worn than the rest of an image, and the rest of an object, so maybe this is a good idea to start right here. Of course you can paint here as well, but the edges should be your first choice. And try not to make it too nice, try to make it irregularly, because then it looks a lot more natural. If we render this, we see, oh, nothing happened so far. It can't happen to anything because we're not done yet. So what we have to do, this vertex map has to go into this material. We use the alpha channel for that. So you just click the alpha channel, go in texture to effects, and you find the vertex map tag right here. Now you have to draw this inside this vertex map container. It's more or less just a container. In order to do so, you just click on it, and now you can just bring this in here. You don't see anything else, but it's working. You close it again, and when we render now, you see, okay, the edges we just painted. This is exactly where you see the green color, which is underneath the orange color. But on the other hand, to be honest, this doesn't look very, very sexy, okay? It looks nice, you can look at it, it's okay, but it's nothing that blows your mind, because it's not really that. But we can change that. We double click on the material again, and instead of just a simple vertex map, we use another texture. We use the layer. The layer, as you might know, is also nothing more than a container. So it's not replaced, because if you click on the layer, you find the vertex map inside. Now what we do is we get another color shader and another color shader, and make one of these shaders black, and bring it just underneath the vertex map. Now if we don't have to, but if we render this now, nothing happens. But if I take the vertex map we just created and put this on layer mask, then it is like a layer mask, and if I render again, we have the same thing again. We see again the green lines. Go back to normal. This is just something we could do, but what we really are going to do is we take a folder, put in the vertex map, just like that. Hello, hello, can I put you in, please? Folder, okay, and bring the folder again in between the two color shaders, right? Color, folder, color. And also inside the folder, we get ourselves a noise. Okay. Now we have the color white and the color black, and the folder goes on layer mask. The noise is something that is on normal. This is something now you put on lever. So this is all you have to do. And if you build this material once, just like I did now, you can keep it, you can change the colors, you can change the noises, and if you render, it looks like that. That's also not the best we can get. It's nothing that is really special, but you don't have to stick to that noise. You just can change the noise. Go to a noise that is a little bit more advanced or just look a little bit more realistic. Then we get this. Go back and change, let's say, the opacity of the noise. So we just go down from 100% to, let's go to, I don't know, 36% and do it again. Then you see that this all looks a little bit washed out. You can go back to a little bit more like 68-70% and it looks like this. So it's a mixture between washed out and these detailed green parts you can see now. So there's a lot you can play, a lot of things you can play around, you can play with. It might look even more realistic if you take, let's say here, a color. No, here's a color that is a lot darker, not that saturated, and the green color could be something that goes towards I don't know, reflectance. So we don't use this, we use I don't put in too much reflectance now, but we could use maybe something like that, a little bit brighter. Okay, and then again, if you render this, it looks like that. Okay. If you don't like this, or if you like it, you might like it, but you say, maybe the other way around, we just change colors, no problem. Or you say, it looks, if we go closer, it's very, very, well, you don't see any height. So what you, of course, can do, you go to, no, the other one, the dark material again, you take the alpha, go to texture, and copy the shader. All right, you just copy it, go to displacement, and also in texture, you paste it in, then it looks like that. Maybe it's a little bit too much. We will see if it's too much. And what you need now definitely is the SDS, the sub-polygon, the SPD, I'm sorry, sub-polygon displacement, because it's not subdivided enough. If we do that, then this is what you get, okay? Maybe too much, maybe we go to a negative strength, it looks better, and try again, and this is what you get, okay? Maybe not 10 centimeters, maybe something like 1 centimeter, and it looks a lot more naturalistic than it did before, and you can do a lot of, well, yeah, these worn edges without using body paint or another program to paint directly on your model, on your prop. Let's go back to Keynote and see how the image was done. Okay, we have, first of all, we go back to Keynote. We are already in Keynote, and this is where I wanted to put my monopod. I would like to have it driving through the city of Berlin. This is the subway station Prinzenstraße in the middle of Kreuzberg, in the middle of Berlin. And this is a good, I think it looks perfect for our monopod as some sort of background image. So this is the image photographed with a wide angle, and it looks like night, but it's not. It was during the daylight. Then I thought this a little bit changed perspective should look a little bit better, and I put in more lighting, because if you paint in lighting into an image, it must be at night or in dusk or dawn, and there's more suspension in the image. So next thing, I realized nothing would work because there's not enough suspension in there, because it still looks very clean, very nice. If we go back to this, it looks very, very well. Nobody's driving there. You see a nice skyline in the background, but all this together is not a very, very cool image. I at least think so. So I was waiting for the next rain. There was really heavy rain should come, and I said to my assistant, let's go there, let's take the picture right now. And so we went there and took this picture, because if you want a picture with a lot of rain, you of course can try to put this in Cinema 4D. Takes me probably 5 days to do this, and it doesn't even look that good. Or you put it in Photoshop, then it takes you 7 days and it looks not good at all. So I preferred to really take this by picture. So we just did this picture. All right, okay, so we went there and took the picture, and now this is the background we need for it. And after the background, this is the lighting, because this is too bright, and to bring it a little bit more to the dark side, this is probably rather a time that looks like this is really at night. Not at night, but pretty close to night. What I did not change is the lighting of the car. The lighting of the car was not brighter, not darker. I just left it the way it is. So I did a lot of masking work to just mask the station itself and made it darker. So next thing is to bring in more lighting and more rain, right? Because without the rain, yeah, it doesn't look pretty natural. We also paint perspective. Maybe you look at it now and just take a look at the left corner where you can see the end of the street. When you look now, you see it's a lot brighter there. So I just painted in white color. White color with Photoshop makes that it looks further away, because everybody thinks this must be something like haze, right? So the more distance you have between you and the horizon, the more haze you have to paint in order to make it look far away. So that's what I did, and this is the result. So next thing is, of course, we need the scooter, and you can see we did a lot of painting of vertex maps, because everything that looks worn, wherever you can see that the color comes off, I painted vertex maps directly on the scooter, on the different parts of it. The guy you can see there is not photographed. The guy itself is from Adobe Fuse. Adobe Fuse is a character modeler where I just just put this together. If you work with Fuse, you will know that it's really easy to work with it, because you don't have to know a lot about 3D work. You just click on what you want to see, and Mixamo does the rigging for you, so you don't even have to rig. So this is where I use guys or models from Fuse from time to time, and in this case I can put the pilot directly on the monopod, so all the lighting I provided for the monopod was also perfect for the pilot, which is sometimes an advantage, because then you don't have to photograph somebody, you don't have to try to match the lighting. And in this special case, I did not have to put somebody 3 meters above the ground, because the only perspective I could photograph him was 3 meters above the ground, right? Okay, so I use Adobe Fuse. Let's see what else we did. This is probably all we did, because no, not yet. There's not enough rain there, but the lighting, also something that can be done in Cinema 4D. And if you go back to the pure rendering, what we see now, you see there's a little light. You see already a little light, and you see also that there's lighting on the monopod, but the light that comes from the monopod itself, that's easy to paint. And this again was painted in Photoshop. So Photoshop and Cinema 4D together that's just the best combination, and you can do probably every work you want to get done with this combination in a pretty short period of time. So a little bit more of rain. Also, this rain was also put in Photoshop, because trying to make rain in Photoshop is not that hard. This is something you can learn. and this is my final image. There's just one more little thing. I think it's important, and I would like to lose a few words about that, because sometimes it happens to me, maybe you know that too, when you start modeling and you put something together with photography, it doesn't look very realistic. Let's go a little bit further to this image, then you can see what I want to tell you. In the background here, in the background of our photograph, you see so many details. You see many details on the surface, you see details on the street, you see little damages, you see different colors, all that. And the model I built had to match that. So also here have to be very good modeled details. As for instance, the screws, you can see all the cables, you can see all this stuff has to have the impression that there is a lot of detail work, which there is also. So it's not just the impression of detail work, it's also the real details are in there. And only when you do that, when you match the level of details of your background, which is of course pretty high because it's a photograph, when you match that with the level of details you use in Cinema 4D, only then I think you have the chance that both things together, your model, your scene, your build in Cinema, and your photograph match and look good together. Okay, guys and girls, that was my little lecture for Maxon for Cinema 4D. My name Uli Staiger. I'm a photographer, CG artist from Berlin, Germany. And if ever for you have questions about learning Cinema 4D or want to know more about my images, just contact me. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for watching.